I'm like this extra, right? I'm like this extra on set, nudging the fucking producer who's like the 6-year-old white man, like, yo, you know, we don't drink soju like that, you know what I mean? Yo, if you're gonna like present something that is supposed to represent my culture, like I feel like I have the right to be hostile. Yo, what's going on? My name is Jay Kicho, the one and only, straight from the planet of Queens, Korean American, 1000%, and you're now watching Shoes Off. Bang. I moved around a lot as a kid. So I was born in South Korea, like an area a little bit outside of Seoul. And then when I was about 6, I would say, my pops had a situation in China. So I went to a city called Nanjing. A lot of people know it for like the Nanjing massacre. But it's like a historic city, you know what I mean? If I have to like compare it, it'd be like a Boston or a Philly, but Chinese version. So it's like ancient history, you know what I'm saying? So I was living over there for like 3 years. So, you know, I had the whole 9. I went to like a it wasn't like an international school or anything. I was like one of 2 non-Chinese folks in that school. It was me and my brother, you know what I mean?
Looks like someone's got a twin.
Looks like somebody's outnumbered.
After a certain point, I got acclimated to the Chinese environment because a lot of, you know, even though there was a little bit of that like calling out of differences, you know, the Chinese environment, like the Chinese community, you know, again, you're a kid, so you know, I got embraced by the local community. I was able to befriend many people, and I really got comfortable in that setting. Like I was speaking fluent Chinese, you know what I mean? Like my Korean wasn't even that good at the time because I was like 6, 7, 8 years old. So I was just adopted the language really quickly. So I was comfortable, and just when I thought that, okay, like I could see myself living here with my folks were like, yo, we're going to America. You know what I mean? Just as soon as I got acclimated to this one environment, this foreign environment, now I have to kind of reset everything, you know what I mean, in America. And compared to China, where I was kind of like considered like the affluent rich kid from Korea. So like a lot of kids were kind of like do me solids, you know what I mean? Like they'll invite me to the crib, you know, be like, oh, yo, that's the Korean kid, you know what I mean? So I kind of had like more of a positive attention. But as soon as I got to Queens, I was like 1 out of, you know, 20 immigrant kids in a classroom. So the playing field just kind of got evened out, you know what I mean? Because everybody's an immigrant, you know what I mean? And also I realized, I was like, oh, I'm no longer like the Korean kid. I'm like one of the Asians, and we're all Chinese. I get into a classroom, and it was like an ESL class, right? You have like a bunch of non-English speaking kids all grouped together, and you have like all these Korean kids straight from Korea, and you have like these Cantonese Chinese kids straight from Guangzhou, and I'm like somewhere in between. You know what I mean? So again, like I'm in this like position of trying to navigate that setting. Because the Korean kids, you know, you call them what, fresh off the boat, 5s, whatever. Like they'll look at me like, oh, yo, you're mad Chinese, you know what I'm saying? And then the Chinese kids, you know, they're from Guangzhou, so they don't even speak the dialect that I spoke. Like I was speaking Mandarin, right? Putonghua, right? And then they were speaking Guangdonghua, which is like a complete different language. And then like the Korean American kids, they speak like this broken Korean, but they look at me as like a fucking, you know, like, you know, immigrant, you know what I mean? And in the process of all of that, I think I kind of found solace and comfort through hip hop music. If you know how to speak that language, if you know how to, you know, if you have knowledge of that culture, you automatically kind of have like this added cool factor. You know what I'm saying? It was like this validation, like, oh, yo, you down. You know what I'm saying? So I think, and that's why like, I think I speak the way I speak English, because like I had to pick up the language quick, and you usually emulate your idols, right? And automatically like, all right, cool, like how do I navigate this environment? You know, I don't want to sound like these fresh off the boat Korean kids with broken English, like be all fucking timid and shit. But then again, I don't want to like, you know, there wasn't any like examples of white America around me, because, you know, Jackson Heights, Elmhurst is like all fucking like brown kids from Southeast Asia, all Mexican or like Central American kids, you know what I'm saying? Some pockets of black kids and just East Asian folks. You know what I'm saying? There was like no example of like some John Hughes movie type shit. You know what I mean? It was just all immigrant shit, or like, okay, how can we all connect under one thing that's American, that we see, that we know it's solid, that we consider it's cool. This shit was rap, it was hip hop. So I was like, all right, like if I'm gonna pick up English, I'm gonna try to like emulate what I consider to be the ultimate form of coolness in American culture.
Hey, yo, fool, we about to have some hardcore drama go down right about now. That's right.
I think like it was so like prevalent in like the area that I grew up in Queens, but I realized that after I kind of got out of like my Queens bubble, I realized, yo, like this rap shit isn't as inclusive as we thought. So I went to school in Fordham in the Bronx, and you know, it's like this gated community within the middle of the fucking Bronx, where like motherfuckers are getting shot and doing drug deals like right outside of campus, but in the campus is like fucking middle America, like nice lawns and all this shit. And then like I come through and I'm like, you know, like at first year I was like staying at one of the dormitories, and then I see like some black folks, and then I was like speaking a conversation with them. It's like, hey, yo, what's up? What's good? Whatever. And then they kind of like looked at me like, did you just say that? You know what I'm saying? Because they just couldn't really register like, okay, like this kid who looks like this speaks with this voice and tone and this type of aura. You know what I mean? And I don't think it was necessarily them like just kind of like discriminating or anything like that. It's nothing negative. It was just that they never experienced that before. They never seen that before, right? So that's when I realized, I was like, okay, like this type of energy that it's very unique to certain parts of America, and Queens being one of them. But like as soon as I got out of that bubble, I got checked as like, oh shit, like not everybody's gonna feel comfortable with the way you are.
Right.
And even though I consider myself like, yo, fully fucking modified by hip hop culture, not everybody's gonna see it as that.
Damn!
Yeah, I mean, the significance difference between Flushing, at least the time that I was growing up, which was late 90s until now, it has always been a predominantly an Asian American enclave, you know, and Jackson Heights, Elmhurst, and parts of Corona, Queens has always had a very strong Hispanic and a Latinx population. So, but everything was just all under the 7 train, you know, so that's why I say 7 train is like the Nile River, you know what I mean? It's like the connector of the civilizations. So you take that 7 train and you get to experience a different culture from a different ethnic group, just on various occasions. And you know, Flushing was kind of like this, one of the last stops. I mean, it is the last stop on the 7 train, so it's like the destination, and happens to be where, you know, the Asian Americans are. And if anything, coincidentally, Flushing is actually the furthest east and northeast of Queens when it comes down to public transportation. So if you gotta call this the Far East, this is the Far East, you know what I mean?
Alumni is a multi-brand fashion boutique. This location in particular, we have a lot more like higher price point fashion menswear products. You know, we have like brands from Japan, made in Japan, to Italian brands like Marni, to you know, more well-known hype brands. I would call it like Comme des Garçons Play, all the way down to like we do easy releases here. We do Converse release drops. Yeah, and so on and so forth. So this is like a menswear fashion boutique, you know what I mean? So over here, I oversee all the creative and the marketing. So if there's like an event that takes place here, I'm overseeing that. A friend of mine kind of was working for this company before it was Alumni, and then, you know, that friend left. But coincidentally, he's actually back now. So it's kind of like a revolving door of like, yo, if you need a job, come to Alumni. Yeah, like, so, you know, when I left Double XL, the magazine company I was working for, I was the senior editor over there. You know, dealing with rappers. That's what I was doing. And when I left that job, I needed like some sort of like, you know, income. And I really kind of got in with the intention of just doing this as like a temporary monetary support. And then, you know, the way I see things, like I don't like to see things for like what I see at the moment, like for what it is. I kind of see for what it could be, you know what I mean? So I was like, boom, like, oh shit, like the barrier of entry of getting into this type of business is this high because you need a certain level of credit and a certain level of like relationship to get like a Nike account, and you already have that. Boom, like I want to get involved, you know? Like a retail space in 2020, and for many years, it has kind of lost the actual transactional aspect of the business because people buy shit online, you know? Like they're not like going to physical retail to try things. I mean, you know, you might buy some clothes, but when it comes down to sneakers and for many things, like people could just buy things online because convenience, humans are lazy by nature. You know, they prefer convenience over experience, you know what I mean? So I think like having this retail space is not just like a commercial business. It's more so like a cultural community hub. I mean, that, you know, at least that was the intention when we kind of decided to build this space. You know, obviously there's commerce being done because we got to pay bills, we're selling products, but there's a lot more that is being done here. Like for instance, we have like a run crew that we host here every Wednesday. We try to do events once a month, where at least pre-corona. I think the favorite part of it is the fact that I'm a partner. Like, so I like that part, you know, so it's not just me doing a 9 to 5. The other part is that I get to like create, interact with a lot of different people, and you know, product is, I think, you know, it's almost kind of like an extension of hip hop culture as well, like, cause you know, when we first get exposed to hip hop, like the first initial attraction to it is the eye candy factor. The fact that you get to see these artists with these fancy clothes, the bling, the gorgeous women in the music videos, that's kind of like, it's like the first taste of the drug, right? And then once you get into it, you kind of explore more of it. And I think because of that, like, we have this mentality, for kids that grew up on hip hop, we have this mentality of keeping things fresh. You know what I mean? That's just kind of like ingrained in our DNA. Like, yo, if you got scuff on your sneakers, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like, so I think that as a result, like, you kind of always crave for something that, you know, looks nice and makes you feel nice. Now, again, like, I'm not one of those like drawn enthusiasts that kind of like have to constantly throw new fits, because I think materialism to a certain degree is okay, but after a certain point it's just fucking idiotic, you know what I mean? But if we could kind of create those narratives where it's tied into the cultural aspect, because all this shit is like, it derives from people that are interested in a specific subculture. And if we could kind of provide that in these less exposed communities like Flushing, where like, you know, you have like all these like POC kids that probably want to get into an industry like this, or want to feel closer to these type of products, but it's always like segmented where they can't really get access to it unless they go into Manhattan or, you know, certain part of the city. So if I could bring that experience to them in their hometown, you know, I feel like there's a lot more synergy that could be created from that. Yo, like Flushing, it's you know, it's Asian American, but in the purest, in the sense of like a minority community, it has all those assets. It has more churches than fucking it has more churches than any sort of cultural businesses, right? It has mad liquor stores, you know what I mean? It has mad bars. It has mad room salons. You know, room salons are like, you know, these hostess clubs. It has all those vices, but it doesn't really, and it has just mad restaurants. So it's like very like carnal, basic, instinctual businesses that exist in here. You know what I mean? And like, there's no real cultural hubs except for like a YMCA and a few libraries. So if there's any sort of business that kind of goes away from that, and that could kind of give that kid who's going down Main Street, be like, boom, I pick up a bubble tea and let me go check out some new drip and maybe talk to some cool staff that knows the shit about culture. That in itself is like a whole different dynamic. I had this one instance, I don't even know if it could be described as microaggression or if it's just straight ignorance. I got casted. No, I went for an audition. So my friend Dumbfounded, he was supposed to play like this minor character in the season 3 of Power, right? The TV show Power. So he was supposed to play the son of an Asian gangster who's like this hipster drug dealer. Like that was his character. So like the studio was like, yo, like we need some of your homies to be like part of your goon squad. You know what I mean? So I was like, I bet, like this is light work, you know what I mean? I just need to kind of like shave my head and, you know, cool, like Asian gangster. I was never one, but I was around a lot of those, so I could know exactly how to act like one. So I went in there with the thought like, you know, that's kind of what we were gonna play because, you know, I grew up in Queens and, you know, there's like a handful of gangster type of figures around here or, you know, like folks like that. And that's kind of what I went in thinking. And the casting director sent us an email saying like, yo, get ready to K-pop. And I was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I was like, wait, did she say this as a joke or she really mean this shit, right? Like, did she really mean it? So I went in there with my boy Rec, my boy Rex Stizzy. He's an Asian American rapper. Rec already had dyed his hair and shit, like, so he was ready to K-pop. He was ready to K-pop, you know what I mean? But I kind of went in there with like a little like chip on my shoulder, like, yo, like I gotta school these white ladies, you know what I'm saying? These casting directors don't know what the fuck they talking about. But, you know, I'm over there like just not trying to listen, right? At least trying to like understand the situation. So like we go into the room and then they got like this mood board with like all these like K-pop celebrities, like, you know, Big Bang, you know. At the time, this was a couple years ago, so this is before like BTS and all that shit. So it was like Big Bang, you know, 21 and yada yada yada. And then like the casting lady was like, yo, y'all ready to K-pop and all that? And Rec was like, yeah, I'm down to like, you know, be like GD and shit, you know? And like the lady's like, oh, who's G-Dragon? And like, I was like, yo, like he's on the mood board, you know? So that he's on the mood board that you're talking about, you know what I'm saying? So I'm thinking in my head like, okay, cool. So they don't even know like, they don't know the Jay-Z of K-pop and they're over here telling us to be K-pop. You know what I'm saying? It's in the mood board. So boom. So like, I was like, yo, do I still need to do this shit? But then, you know, like I'm with my boys and, you know, I'm not trying to fuck this shit up for anybody, right? I'm like, all right, cool. Like I'll ride along with it. And it wasn't that bad, honestly. You know what I mean? They kind of like put some eyeliners on us and, you know, they kind of like definitely looked very like, you know, androgynous, like not like crazy androgynous, but it kind of had those elements, right? And we were supposed to be these goons, you know? Again, it's fictional TV, you know, it has nothing to do with like, it's not like end of the world. It wasn't like they made us look like Uncle Wongs and shit, you know what I mean? It wasn't like some Breakfast at Tiffany's type shit, right? Because it wasn't like, yeah, we were still, you know, being us. But on the set, there was just like small things, man. Like, you know, on the set, like the set was supposed to be like this fictional room salon where like the character Ghost was supposed to have like this dialogue with Dumbfounded about a drug deal. And then like this hostess chick brings out like soju, but poured into the glasses like a tequila shot. And I'm just like, I'm like this extra, right? I'm like this extra on set, nudging the fucking producer who's like the 6-year-old white man, like, yo, you know, we don't drink soju like that, you know what I mean?
What does he say?
Like, he was just, oh, word? Oh, okay, cool. Oh, yeah, we'll talk about it. You know, we already shot it, so, you know, maybe we'll fix it later. Yeah, they never changed it, but who the fuck am I supposed to be there, right? To tell this folks this shit, you know what I mean? So, yeah, like, I think just all those things, like, you know, nobody was really there to like openly call out those small moments because they didn't want to ruffle the feathers and they didn't want to be that person who's difficult to work with, you know what I mean? But it's like, yo, if you're gonna like present something that is supposed to represent my culture, like I feel like I have the right to be hostile if the shit is not being done correctly, right? You know, for those like young Asian cats or ladies that are living in parts of America that doesn't have like an Asian community, that you feel lost and you feel like you don't belong because you don't really see faces that look like you, I would say get the fuck out of there.
Get out! Yo! Yo, chill, man. Get out! Chill!
Nah. I mean, listen, like, it's hard for me to address that because I kind of had the privilege of living in a place like Queens where, like, I never fully... I mean, I probably felt it in different instances, but probably not to the degree of somebody who's like the only Asian family in a 100-mile radius, you know? So it's hard for me to say like, oh, you should do this and that, because who am I to tell you what to do? But what I could recommend is building your own knowledge, like building your own knowledge of self, whether that's through books, whether that's through you know, social media, you know, just kind of creating your own world. I think that's like the best way to keep you rooted and grounded. And I think now more so than ever, like there's so much more resources that are out there that you could do that, you know, because back then, like even when I was like younger, there was like Zanga, and then it was MySpace, then it was so on and so forth. So even in that sense, like a lot more connections were able to take place. But now, like, if you just do a little bit of scroll through on Instagram, you're gonna find like a lot of Asian figures that are prominent, outspoken, that I feel like you could, you know, these folks could relate to.
You ever felt ashamed of being Korean? Asian?
Have I ever felt ashamed to be Korean? No, I never felt ashamed to be Asian American or Asian or Korean. You know, like I've always had the privilege of having, you know, this sense of pride and knowledge of who I was, you know, because none of that was gonna sway me. I mean, if anything, like, you know, I grew up Buddhist, and the Korean communities in America are predominantly Christian. So, like when I was younger, like a lot of my friends would just say like, yo, you're gonna go to hell, son. You know what I mean? That was like what they would tell you straight up. It's like, yo, you're gonna go to hell because you don't believe in Jesus Christ. You know what I mean? And even then, like, I didn't get swayed by that because I was privileged enough to have a strong foundation that like I was very comfortable with who I was. The only time that I felt like, damn, I might want to go to church is because for the girls, you know what I mean? Like the big churches always have like the fly shorties from the tri-state, especially during like, you know, when they have the retreats and shit, you know what I mean? That's the only time I was like, fuck, I kind of want to go to church. But aside from that, like I was always comfortable with myself. So, and I think like, that's my experience. So I can't really say like, yo, because I could do it, like you should do it too. You know what I'm saying? Like, because everybody's different.
Yo, this is Jay Kicho. I'm a podcast host, I'm a film producer, and I'm also a partner and marketing director of Flushing's own Alumni. In fact, you're in Flushing, Queens right now with all these cars passing through on Northern Boulevard, and you're watching Shoes Off. Bong.